Okay, Your Honor, if it's okay with you, I will officially resume this public.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Okay, everyone, welcome back. It's 12:37. We're resuming the Board of Behavioral Science petitioner portion of the meeting today. My name is Max Disposti, pronounced PMS. I'm the board chair, and we have our judge preceding the petitioners today, and Judge Bennett. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And everybody is on board here. Okay. My name is Wilbert Bennett. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings assigned to preside over this matter. We are here today to review the petition for early termination of probation of Brad Winthrop Wood. Let the record reflect that a quorum of the board is present. And board chair, do we typically identify each one of the board members for each of the hearings in the manner that we did this earlier today?
Correct.
Okay, if so, could we ask Steve Soderstrom to
Call the board.
call the board members? Please
Yes.
proceed.
Perfect. I will call roll. Max Disposti.
Here.
Crystal Anthony is absent. Deborah Brown.
Here.
Ross Ehrlich.
Here.
Susan Friedman.
Here.
Thank you. Diana Herwick.
Here.
Christopher Jones.
Here.
Jonathan Maddox.
Here.
Kelly Renasinghe.
Here.
John Sovek.
Present.
Wendy Strack.
Here.
Christina Wong.
Here.
All members are present.
Okay, thank you. Again, this is the matter of the petition for early termination of Brad Winthrop Wood. This matter bears Office of Administrative Hearings case number 2021-060294 and Board of Behavioral Sciences case number 20002015001265. My name is Wilbert Bennett. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings assigned to preside over this matter. May I take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General?
Thank you. Good afternoon. DAG Patricia Heim, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California, pursuant to Government Code Section 11522.
Thank you. Petitioner is present and is representing himself. Is that correct?
No, I'm represented by counsel.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're represented by counsel. Okay. And your counsel is Derek F. O'Reilly Jones, is that correct?
Correct. He's present. I don't know if he's able to speak yet.
And counsel is present. Is he present in your office or is he at his office?
At his office, Your Honor.
Is at his office? Oh, yes.
If I may, I've just been permitted to join.
Oh, yes. Okay. You are representing Mr. Wood in this matter. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay. So all parties are present and accounted for. And just briefly, I'm just going to state a few brief preliminary matters for the record. Because of the ongoing health crisis, of course, we are proceeding via video conference and telephone. And for that reason, all parties are requested to refrain from talking over each other so that the court reporter can prepare an accurate record in this matter. At the end of this proceeding, the court reporter will provide an estimated number of pages for anyone interested in a transcript. And at this point, just briefly, in this proceeding, the board is concerned with hearing about any rehabilitation since the license of the petitioner was disciplined. And Mr. Wood, just for your information, and I don't know how experienced your counsel might be in these matters, but the proceeding, or the procedure generally is that the Deputy Attorney General will first present a petition package and provide any background or case summary in this matter solely for the purpose of refreshing the recollection of the board members who will have seen the documents previously. Again, after that, after the presentation of the petition package by the Deputy Attorney General, you, the petitioner, Mr. Wood, will have an opportunity to make your presentation. Remember that the board has had the benefit of reading the petition package, and you do not have to repeat anything in that package. You will be subject to questioning by both the board members and the Deputy Attorney General. After the hearing, the board will go into closed session to deliberate. You will not receive a decision today. It will be mailed in the near future. So do you have any questions at this point, either you, Mr. Wood, or your counsel?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, no questions
for myself, Your Honor, but if I could draw the moderator's attention to the fact that we do anticipate two witnesses calling in to speak briefly, Mr. Jason Lambert and Mr. Donald Jones. We have notified them that we're beginning Mr. Wood's hearing, and sometime in the next half hour or so, both should try to log on. I just wanted to identify those two people for the record, and we would be happy to interrupt Mr. Wood's testimony to take them. They're both professionals who are making time out of their workday to appear, and perhaps take them out of order if that's acceptable to the court and opposing counsel.
Yes, I do not have, Ms. Heim, do you have any objection to that proceeding? To proceeding
No,
on that
not.
basis?
I do not.
Okay, and yes, and this is not your typical adversary proceeding. I might add, Mr. O'Reilly Jones. We are all here basically to make sure that a record is made in this matter so that the board can make an appropriate determination regarding whether the petition should be granted. And again, this is not an adversary proceeding. It's a proceeding more like a fact-finding proceeding whereby the board whereby a record is made for the board to make a determination regarding the appropriateness of the relief that is being requested. So at this point in time, I will turn the matter over to Ms. Heim for presentation of the petition package and case summary.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As a preliminary matter, I will be introducing exhibit number 1 following my summary. However, I wanted to note for the judge's attention that exhibit 1, pages 62 through 93 have been submitted with a request for a protective order sealing these documents, as they contain records which include either psychological or medical information. And it would be in the best interest of the petitioner that these documents are not made public.
Yes, I'm aware of that, counsel. And I'm looking at, I have reviewed the documents, and it appears that the motion to seal the records is unopposed. And the motion for protective order will be granted. A copy of the order will be given to the party. I mean, we could certainly, you counsel, you have seen the request for protective order in this matter, is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And I want to confirm you do have no objection, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, the motion will be granted, and the motion will be granted. It will be deemed that the parties have consented to it, and for record-keeping purposes, a copy will be given to the parties in due course. Because of the nature of the proceeding, normally I might hand copy a counsel, but it will be a copy of this will be provided in due course. The motion is granted. So with that understanding, please proceed, Counsel Heim.
Thank you. I will begin with the history and summary for Petitioner. Petitioner was issued a licensed clinical social worker license, number LCSW 20025, on December 5th, 2000. The license has been in full force and effect and will expire on November 30th, 2022, unless renewed. On May 23rd, 2016, an accusation was filed against Petitioner. On October 7th, 2015, Brad Wood entered a plea of nolo contendere and was convicted of violating Vehicle Code sections 23153, subdivision B, driving with a greater than 0.08% blood alcohol content, causing bodily injury, and 20001, subdivision B2, hit and run driving resulting in serious injury to another person. Respondent was sentenced to 5 years formal felony probation, 365 days in jail, fined in order to pay restitution of $37,500 to the victim. The circumstances surrounding the conviction include that on November 19th, 2014, respondent was involved in a motor vehicle accident while driving to his work as a licensed clinical social worker. When turning left at an intersection, respondent's vehicle struck the victim's motorcycle as the victim was proceeding straight through the intersection. Respondent felt the impact, but drove away from the scene. Los Angeles County Sheriff officers were able to locate the respondent and determined that he was under the influence of alcohol. Respondent submitted to preliminary alcohol screening twice, and this resulted in a blood alcohol content reading of 0.233% and 0.242%. The board adopted the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order effective July 7th, 2017, and respondent was placed on probation for 5 years. There is no tolling history in this matter, and regarding modifications, Mr. Wood received a modification of his psychotherapy condition requirement on August 11th, 2020. The therapy was eliminated at the request of Mr. Wood's therapist. Regarding compliance, petitioner is requesting early termination and is represented. Regarding the psychological evaluation, he completed this evaluation on August 25th, 2017. The psychologist utilized Pearson assessments and PAR. The face-to-face time with Mr. Wood was 6 hours. The psychological tests used include the symptom validity testing, test of memory malingering, or TOMN, cognitive testing, Montreal Cognitive Assessment, Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory 2, Million Clinical Multi-Axel Inventory 3, Waller Clinical Multi-Axel Inventory, Beck Depression Inventory 2, Beck Anxiety Inventory, and the psychologist indicated that Mr. Wood was to continue with the current conditions of probation with no additional recommendations. Regarding his psychotherapy quarterly report, he is fully compliant and therapy was terminated on August 11th, 2020. He is fully compliant with the requirement to have supervised practice. And regarding abstaining from controlled substances and alcohol, submitting to random drug testing, he is fully compliant. Regarding the relapse prevention program, he completed this requirement on January 15th, 2019. He paid his cost recovery in full on June 30th, 2017. And regarding the standard terms and conditions, which include quarterly reports and reimbursement costs, he is fully compliant and paid reimbursement costs in full on June 30th, 2019. And now I will introduce the exhibits which have been provided to the board members and to council. Pre-marked as Exhibit 1 is the original petition packet with accompanying documents. These include the petition for early termination of probation, which is dated October 8th, 2020, and includes the following attachments. Petitioner's typewritten responses to questions 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. There are several letters of reference, including the following. A letter dated October 5th, 2020 from Terry Montgomery, the AA sponsor. A letter dated October 6th, 2020 from Brandon Goreski, MA, LMFT. This includes his resume. A letter dated September 30th, 2020 from Gerard C. Gerasi, last name spelled G-E-R-A-C-I. Letter dated September 16th, 2020 from Jason Lambert, who is an LCSW. Letter dated October 6th, 2020 from Frederick Holloway. Letter dated September 8th, 2020 from Donald Jones, Jr. Letter dated September 19th, 2020 from Linda L. Wood Stanek. Letter dated September 3rd, 2020 from Karaman Rat. This is the drug addiction counselor. There are also included post-DUI pre-probation character letter references, including duplicate copies of the letter dated December 5th, 2016, and this letter is from Donald Jones, Jr. There's a letter dated January 7th, 2017 from Jeanette Ward, PhD. A letter dated January 23rd, 2017 from Lorraine C. Neal. She is a psych assistant, MBA, and CATC, and this includes a resume. There are also included pre-probation random observed urine test results, including 4 pages from the month of April 2017, notification of completion of the ABC traffic 9-month program, and then pages 62 through 93 are filed under seal, as has been noted. This is followed by 2 pages of an addiction medicine relapse prevention and support group program completion document, 4 pages of substance abuse counselor credentials, 27 pages of continuing education completion certificate, and 2 pages of Michigan licensing documents. At this time, I would move to submit Exhibit 1 for all purposes.
No objection.
No objection. Okay. I will receive into evidence the Exhibit 1 with the understanding previously stated on the record that pages indicated AGO 062 to AGO 093 are admitted under seal, a protection order having been issued in this matter for those pages with respect or for the reasons previously indicated on the record. These, again, are, since this is not an adversary proceeding, while those portions that I just mentioned are labeled complainants, exhibits, and pages with the pages indicated, in actuality, they are the state's exhibits, since there's no complainant in this matter. this not being an adversary proceeding. So again, Exhibit 1 is in evidence with the caveats indicated. Please proceed, counsel.
Thank you. Pre-marked as Exhibit 2 includes the following: the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which was effective July 7th, 2017, and ordered that petitioner's licensed clinical social worker registration number LCSW 20025 was revoked, stayed, and placed on 5 years probation with terms and conditions. Accusation number 2002015 001265, dated May 23rd, 2016, is attached. And at this time, I would move to submit Exhibit 2 into evidence for all purposes.
No objection.
No objection. Okay, Exhibit 2 is in evidence.
Thank you. Pre-marked as Exhibit 3, the following documents are included: notice of hearing to petitioner dated June 4th, 2021, and the license history certification for petitioner for licensed clinical social worker license number LCSW 20025, which is in full force and effect and will expire on November 30th, 2022, unless renewed. At this time, I would move to submit Exhibit 3 into evidence for all purposes.
No objection.
Exhibit 3 is admitted into evidence. Anything further, Counsel Hine?
No, at this time, I will reserve until after petitioner's statement.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hine. At this time, it is now the petitioner's turn to make a presentation. Before you do that, Mr. Wood, I would ask if your counsel would like to make a brief opening statement.
Yes, Your Honor, and if I might address one housekeeping issue before I begin. We did e-file with the Office of Administrative Hearings 4 additional exhibits. I do not know if those have been presented to the board or yourself yet. May I inquire as to whether or not that's occurred?
Okay, counsel, that's a very good question. I was going to bring that up. I did receive a petitioner's exhibit list and 4 exhibits. I assume the board members did receive those as well.
Your Honor, I'm checking as we speak. Usually, yeah, it looks like we have all the exhibits. I don't know if Steve wants to double check, but I believe we received them in the package for the petitioner.
I'm
Okay.
checking, but yes, we should have.
I know they were very numerous, so I'm hoping I'm covering, with this answer, I'm covering everything, but we received the addendum and the additional package.
Okay, Mr. Disposi, this would have been labeled as petitioner's exhibit list and there would have been exhibits attached. Petitioners, there's one entitled petitioner's exhibit list and one is entitled petitioner's exhibits.
I am looking, I believe so, Steve. I don't know if you can confirm for everyone, but the only challenges we usually have if there are latest submission, like if they were submitted within the 48 hours previous to the meeting, that could be a challenge sometimes. But anything that was previously submitted with the case usually is received on our very end.
Everything, we didn't get word of the e-filing. Everything that was presented to us, we presented to the board.
This was e-filed last week. Time received copies
e-filed last week.
There are 4 in total. They are 4 letters. Correct.
This was e-filed on July 2nd.
Oh.
Did you serve the board too?
No, Ms. Heim, as counsel, received the copies.
Then there could be a chance that the board members have not seen. These are the 4 letters that you're talking about.
Certainly. Then I would simply ask that we make an arrangement. It's only a few pages. I would represent that they're letters from a couple of individuals updating previous letters sent last year, and 2 letters, one to the board and one from the board, related to the therapy term and condition, which was lifted upon Mr. Wood's therapist's request. So very small number of documents. I think we're talking less than 20 pages. I'm happy to, when we conclude, perhaps email those for distribution if there's no objection to their admission during the hearing.
Ms. Heim, you did receive the documents in question, correct?
I did, correct. And I just sent them to the board representative who has been emailing me. And I am cautiously optimistic that she will be able to distribute them to the board.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd be happy to distribute them somehow. We could post them on our cloud, but then also email, I assume, would be the fastest way.
Your Honor, may I, Steve? I think as
Yes.
we've done in previous cases, when we have circumstances like that, unless we will be happy to receive the additional documentation. However, we're going to close session this afternoon. I don't want to delay the opportunity for the board to pronounce themselves. So you can send it to us if you feel that they're strongly relevant to influence the board in one way or another. Definitely will make sure that we take them in consideration, and if we had to postpone the time for another time, I will not suggest you that. But we can try to speed up the process as much as possible, if that's okay with you all.
Okay, Mr. DePosti, I'm wondering if it's possible, perhaps someone could even, the board members are not all in the same place, are they?
No, we're not. But
No.
because we're following the proceeding, we can't take off and read this. We had to wait until the end of the session and then go in closed session and find the time to read the additional material. It doesn't seem to be extensive, so that seems to be very practical, but it needs to be sent to us in the meantime. Yes.
Yeah, and we can provide the documentation to them multiple ways. So we'll do that once we get it, I believe, and then I will distribute it to them. So.
Thank you.
Okay. It appears that at least 2 of the letters are duplicates of what's already in the file.
If I may, I believe they are updates. These individuals submitted letters back in mid-2020, and then within the last month, submitted updates, and there should be references to the updated nature of the letters in the mid body.
For the record, Mr. O'Reilly Jones, let's identify them. We're talking about a letter from Brandon Goreski and a letter from
Jason Lambert. These are
Jason Lambert.
Exhibits C and D, correct.
Right, and I looked at these letters and they appear to be basically the same letters that were previously submitted as part of the package. I know that they say they're updated, but it's essentially almost verbatim.
If I may, for instance, in Mr. Goreski's letter, there was a paragraph discussing his updates from the period of his first letter to the present. But I would agree with the board coordinators or the board members' conclusion that perhaps we should simply move ahead and have these distributed after without delaying further. There is a lot of duplicative content because these are update letters. So if it's going to cause too much of an issue, I think maybe we deal with it afterwards.
Okay, that's fine. They do appear to be duplicative. We certainly could take that up at the appropriate time. So do you have putting that aside for the minute, do you have a brief opening statement, Mr. O'Reilly, or should we, O'Reilly?
I certainly do.
Okay, please proceed. Please proceed.
So I'll keep this brief because I know our time is limited and there may be other petitioners that you have to see today. But I wanted to say that it's an honor and a privilege to represent Mr. Brad Winthrop Wood on his petition for termination of his 5-year probation, which began exactly 4 years ago today on July 7th, 2017. Mr. Wood, as you know, is a licensed clinical social worker and has been for over 20 years. He's here before you today because his rehabilitation journey has been truly remarkable. So much so that the last year of his probation is unnecessary to protect the public. And in fact, the public would be better served if it were lifted now and he was allowed to practice more fully and completely outside of its present restrictions. Mr. Wood's journey began on November 19th, 2014, over 6.5 years ago, when Mr. Wood hit, as you heard, a motorcyclist with his vehicle while driving under the influence of alcohol. You will hear that that morning was the very last time that he imbibed alcohol of any kind and in any capacity. That is, in fact, his sobriety date. And as he rehabilitated from those injuries that he suffered himself in the hospital following the accident, he came to the realization that he needed to make a change. Even before Mr. Wood could walk again on his own, you will hear that he began attending AA meetings and did so every day for almost 3 years. He continues to be an active participant in AA, and you're going to read a letter from his sponsor, Terry Montgomery, in his exhibit packet, if you haven't already. You'll also learn that as soon as Mr. Wood came out of inpatient physical rehab at Kaiser, he began weekly substance abuse therapy with his psychiatrist, Dr. Islau, and therapist, Mr. Goreski. We've just been discussing a couple of letters from Mr. Goreski, who is a strong advocate for Mr. Wood and the strength and depth of his recovery. Both have submitted letters, so you'll see one from Dr. Islau as well. You're also going to hear and read that both Dr. Islau and Mr. Goreski last year formally requested that the psychotherapy term and condition of Mr. Wood's probation be lifted, as they found it to be unnecessary. For Mr. Wood, you'll hear that he's continued with that psychotherapy regardless, because he feels it's an important part of his recovery journey. Mr. Wood also underwent a two-week day treatment program in 2015. This is before his board probation became into effect, and completed a 9-month DUI class. In 2016, he took the next step, and you're going to hear him talk about how he became a substance abuse counselor so that he could give back to the recovery community and share his substantial knowledge of addiction with others in need. He has devoted a significant amount of time and effort over the past few years, aiding others in their recovery journeys, and really becoming a leader in the recovery community in his area. In the course of this Board of Behavioral Sciences probation, which he has complied with fully and completely, as you heard, he has also been regularly tested for drug and alcohol use, with every test result being negative. He's also completed a relapse prevention program, participated in supervised practice with Jason Lambert, an experienced clinical social worker who we hope to hear from in just a few minutes. And schedules permitting, we also hope to hear from one of Mr. Wood's close friends, Donald Jones, who's going to talk about his perspective and observations of Mr. Wood's recovery over the last 6.5 years. In 2017, as you heard from Ms. Heim, Mr. Wood also completed a very thorough psychiatric evaluation with a board-appointed psychologist, Pamela Hall, PhD. As you will read in the sealed portion of the exhibit packet, she believed 4 years ago that Mr. Wood's recovery was of such a high caliber that it would be reasonable to reevaluate him within a single year for unsupervised practice. That is to say, she felt it would be reasonable to reevaluate him as of January 2018. We are now, of course, presenting this in 2021. There is no denying that Mr. Wood struggled with alcohol and addiction before his accident in 2014, that the consequences of that accident were serious. However, he comes before you now a completely changed man with a long, demonstrated, verified abstinence from alcohol, completely committed to a lifelong sobriety and sober lifestyle. You'll hear this not only from Mr. Wood himself, but from Donald Jones, Jason Lambert, and numerous other witnesses whose letter declarations attested to under penalty of perjury are contained in the petition packet before you. In short, I expect by the end of this hearing, you will find compelling evidence to grant a petition for early termination in this case. Mr. Wood, if I might say, is in fact perhaps a poster child for an ideal recovery. With that, I would thank you for your time, and perhaps we can proceed to our first witness if they have joined the conference.
Okay, can you determine whether they're on board? If they're not on board, I'm sorry.
This is the moderator. Both Donald and Jason Lambert are panelists and can unmute themselves or should be able to unmute themselves.
They are present. Okay, whichever one you'd like to go first.
If we may, I'd like to call Jason Lambert first, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jason Lambert, are you present?
I am present.
Okay, before you testify, let me swear you in as a witness. Raise your right hand. Are you there?
I'm there. It wouldn't let me turn on the camera. Let me try again.
If not, okay.
Oh, now it let me. Okay.
Okay, there you are. Okay, do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that your testimony in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Okay, please again state your name for the record.
Jason Lambert, licensed clinical
Okay.
social worker.
Please proceed, Mr. Lambert.
Mr. Lambert, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you had to carve time out of your busy schedule, and we sincerely appreciate it. Could you begin by introducing yourself to the board members and sharing with us a little bit about your background, education, and experience?
I received my master's degree in social work in 2001, and I've been practicing since then in a variety of settings. I've worked in psychiatric, inpatient, outpatient, community mental health, and I'm now in private practice. I have been licensed in the state of California since 2005 as a licensed clinical social worker.
I understand you may have been involved in trainings and workshops. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, I've also taught at the university level. So I worked with the University of Phoenix, teaching graduate students there for about 15 years. At the previous agency that I worked at for 15 years, I was involved in supervising staff, managing programs, including intensive programs, also providing trainings, including legal and ethical trainings. And I also taught classes in law and ethics as a part of the graduate program that I was connected with as well.
So were these classes taught to other clinicians or college students?
The graduate classes were for prospective new students, and then the trainings were for licensed clinicians in order to maintain their licensure.
You mentioned that you have a bit of experience supervising therapists. Is that correct?
That is correct. I've supervised numerous therapists throughout the years, the 15 years that I worked at the agency. And was involved in their weekly supervision and also training them in clinical practices, as well as dealing with legal and ethical issues as they arose.
Thank you. Let's turn now to your knowledge and experience with Mr. Wood. Can you tell us, how did you first meet?
We did briefly work at the same agency in different departments, and that was in one of the earlier letters to the board. But we didn't really have a relationship at that point. But he knew of me, so he approached me about 3 years ago and asked me if I would supervise him as a part of his probation. So we submitted that, and I started then about a little over 3 years ago supervising him. And so we've met weekly since then. We haven't missed any appointments. We've met every week since then.
So tell us a little bit about what your supervision entails, if you can.
Typically, we will review cases. So he'll present new cases if he has new clients, or we will follow up on other clients. I will give him any feedback that I have. We also touch base on other things like trainings he attended and how he would incorporate those into his everyday practice. I also reviewed his documentation, billing records, progress notes, and other documentation randomly once every few months as a part of oversight as well, and would make sure that progress notes and billing records matched up and that all of the legally required forms were in place and all that.
In how many different settings have you supervised or performed your supervisory duties?
I had the opportunity to, Mr. Wood, when we first started, he's now just in private practice, but when we first started, he worked in some different settings as a part of his employment in addition to private practice. He worked in a more residential facility and then an outpatient facility and then also in private practice. And I had the opportunity to visit him at all of these sites, including sometimes where I was able to see him interacting with and working with clients.
So would you feel that you have appropriate experience with Mr. Wood to offer a few opinions about his recovery and clinical competence and character?
Yes, I would.
So let's start with recovery and sobriety. Can you tell us if you've reached any conclusions about the nature or status of his recovery and sobriety?
From the very beginning, Mr. Wood has been very open about things that have taken place and where he's at with his sobriety and recovery, which is a great place to start, being open and honest about those things. And he has been open and honest completely the rest of the time that I've been supervising him. I haven't seen any signs at all of him being impaired or having any additional signs of continued alcohol use or dependency at this point. So I'm pretty confident, I'm very confident that he has maintained his sobriety.
Do you have any opinions about how he regards his legal and ethical obligations to the profession?
My experience with Mr. Wood is that he is a very conscientious clinician. He takes his moral and ethical obligations very seriously. That would also be a part of our supervision at times, discussing legal and ethical issues. And he was very quick to consult with me if there was any question to be able to talk things through. And in doing that, I was able to get a very strong sense that his moral standards are very high for himself. And I think he is very conscientious about his status as a professional in the community and as a social worker and what that means.
It sounds like your supervision has been fairly comprehensive. Have you developed any opinions about his clinical competence?
Yes, Mr. Wood uses standard clinical practices. He is also continuously attending trainings and staying up to date on new information as well. And we've been able to talk about that in supervision and how he applies those things. For example, while we have been working together, he attended and became certified in EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is to help clients who have experienced trauma process those traumatic events. And he was able to attend the training, become certified, and implement that in his practice with clients while we worked together. So not only has he started with a very solid base and is very competent as a clinician, he's also continuously trying to improve himself and attend meaningful trainings and apply that to his work.
Do you have an opinion about whether or not his probation continues to be necessary?
At this point, I don't feel like it is necessary. I think that he is a very competent clinician. He's very conscientious. I do think that it would be beneficial for the community for his probation to be lifted. It would allow him to serve more clients. His services are in great demand. He always operates at a full capacity as a result. And this would allow him to be able to serve more clients and also kind of restore his standing within the community as one of the community leaders.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anything else you want to add about Mr. Wood before I turn you over to questions from the board and the Deputy Attorney General?
I can't think of anything else. I think that was pretty comprehensive.
Thank you. That's all I have for this witness, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, counsel. Ms. Heim, do you have questions of this witness?
Thank you. No, I do not.
Okay, do the board members have questions of this witness?
I
Your
can go
Honor-
down the line. Oh, sorry.
Your Honor, just what I would like to do, just to speed up the proceeding, perhaps to hold those any questions to the petitioner, not just to the witness, if that's
Yes.
okay with you.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
But not this witness, so I just want to make sure. Can we let this witness go then? I mean, no questions of this witness? Or do you want the witness to remain?
Usually the process we have adopted, just to be consistent, is to have the witness staying throughout the procedures, just in case something might arise, because we can't predict that.
Okay.
If that's okay with the witness, I'm sorry to impose on your time.
Could I make myself available through Mr. Wood's attorney? You can let me know you need me to reconnect.
Of course. Yes.
Okay, is that satisfactory?
Yeah,
That would be
absolutely.
terrific.
So you will remain on call?
I will.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Riley Jones, do you want to call your next witness?
Yes, we'd like to call Donald Jones for the record, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, are you there?
Hello. I'm here.
Okay, you're not visible. Oh, I see maybe you're coming up.
Let's see. I'm trying to do that. Let's see.
I'm sure the board members would like to see you.
Well, I understand. I'm attempting to do that. I am in a vehicle going to UCLA for a medical procedure. So I may not be able to get the video because it doesn't seem to be coming on.
Okay, well, if we can't get your video, can we get your audio okay?
Yes.
Okay, is that acceptable, board members? You can see him, but you can hear him, but you can't see him?
Yeah, it's acceptable for us as long as the swearing part of it, it's okay with you, Your Honor.
We can get him sworn. Okay, are you there, Mr. Jones?
I am.
I can't see you, but will you tell me, answer this question. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that your testimony in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you're duly sworn in as a witness, and you will speak under penalty of perjury from here on. Okay, please proceed, Mr. Riley Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones, and thank you especially for coming to us on a day when you're traveling to your own medical procedure. We really do appreciate your taking this time. I'd like to ask you first to share with the board and His Honor a little bit about your background, training, and experience.
Okay. I moved to California right after I received my bachelor's degree from Penn State University in 1981. And I have been I was in the oil business, and then I was a small business owner. I owned a bookstore, and then I got into teaching, and I have a teaching credential, a special ed teaching credential from California State University, Northridge. I've been teaching now for 25 years in the special education area and taught for about 15 years students with emotional disturbance.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to turn now to your knowledge and experience with Mr. Wood. Can you tell us how and when you first met?
Yes, I met Brad Wood when we were both working at a school called Desert Pathways, which is a special school for students with emotional disturbance. And that was in probably 1997, something like that. And we worked together. Desert Pathways was a tiny school. They only had 4 classrooms. And so I worked with Brad every single day in the classroom. And I mean, he would be in the classroom as well as in his office when he did private sessions with the students. But he was an employee of Valley Child Guidance, which was the mental health agency that was contracted through the State Department of Mental Health to provide the services at the school.
And about how long did that last? How long did you work together at Desert Pathways?
5.
I'm sorry, we're having a little trouble hearing you. Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry, 5 years.
Excellent. After that 5 years, which would be sometime around 2000, 2002, how did your experience with Mr. Wood change?
Well, we were friends at that point, and I was actually dating his roommate, and eventually she moved out of his house and moved into mine, and so I saw Brad on a regular basis in those days.
Okay, and about how long did that last?
That lasted about 6 or 7 years, I would say, and then my relationship with this woman fell apart, and she moved out, and that was that. But I still had contact with Brad throughout most of the time.
So looking back at specifically the last 4 or 5 years, how would you describe your relationship with Mr. Wood?
It's been very good. My sobriety date is December 6th, 2012. And so I was sober when Brad had his incident in 2014, and I was kind of helping with he and his mother and seeing if I could direct them in the recovery process and get him started.
So is it fair to say that you, in the past few years, have remained very close?
Yes.
Do you feel you've had enough experience with Mr. Wood over the past few years to have formed opinions about his recovery and its nature, his character, and things of that kind?
Absolutely. He has embraced recovery with a vigor that I have not seen from anybody else in the 8 years that I've been in the recovery community.
Well, let me ask you about kind of your role in that recovery, since you brought that up. You mentioned that in 2014, you played a role in helping Mr. Wood get into recovery. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, his mother was kind of in a panic, and Brad was in the hospital, and they didn't know quite what to do. And so we had a lot of discussions about, how do you approach this? And having been through it a couple of times myself before I became, sober for this long a period of time, I was able to kind of guide him through. I mean, they didn't know what day treatment was, or the day programs, or the residential programs, or what his options might be, or, how he was going to approach any of this stuff. And it really takes somebody. I've been fortunate in my recovery to
Mr. Jones.
I was probably too close, but
Mr. Jones, I think we have a little video now. Though I think we're only looking at the top of your head. There we go.
Okay. Well,
Wonderful.
I can't see that I have video on my phone, so good. All
Excellent, excellent. It's nice to see your face. Can you tell us, it sounds like you've been plugged into Mr. Wood's recovery from the very beginning. Do you have a sense of, whether or not you believe it's successful? Can you share with us your opinions about where he is right now in terms of recovery?
Yes. I think Brad has been incredibly successful with his recovery. For a while, he actually had an informal sober living house. He had people that needed a place to live from the Alano Club that he was a member of, and he brought them in, and he would hold meetings for them, and they were living at his house for a while. I have over the years, I have known hundreds of people in recovery, and Brad is one of the few people that I can say with complete convinced that I'm completely convinced that tomorrow Brad is going to be sober, and that is true every day, and it's true every day for me too, fortunately. And we were some of the lucky ones that are able to accomplish this.
I understand Mr. Wood is close not only with you, but with the other members of your family, and that you attend social events together. Is that right?
Yes. And he is kind of like a member of the family. He comes over for holidays and that sort of thing. My daughter got caught in the snow when it was snowing up here a year or two ago, and it was 11 o'clock at night. She had her 2 little boys there, and she called Brad. And Brad immediately, got out of the house 11 o'clock at night and went and got him out of the snow, because he would be the one that you would call. In our family, that's who you call.
So, have you ever, over the course of those social events or the many times you've interacted in the last 6.5 years, ever seen any signs or symptoms of alcohol use or inebriation when you meet with or see Brad?
No, absolutely not. And as a matter of fact, just recently, he and I had a conversation. He was over at my house for something, and he said, do you ever feel like drinking anymore? And I said, no. And he said, well, neither do I. I never even think about it. And I said, I don't either.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. From your experience as somebody who has been in recovery yourself, and based on your experience with Mr. Wood, do you feel that the terms and conditions of his probation that you're aware of are necessary to protect the public at this point?
No, not now. I think Brad, it would be much better for his patients and for him and the community if Brad didn't have those limitations any longer. I just don't see any reason whatsoever for them at this point.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. I appreciate it. That's the end of my questions. I'll turn it over to the Deputy Attorney General on the panel if they would like to ask anything now.
Ms. Heim, do you have any questions at this time?
No, thank you. I do not.
Do the board members have any questions, or would they simply like to have the witness remain on call?
Likewise, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Jones, can you remain on call this afternoon if the board members might have questions later?
Yes, if through Mr. O'Reilly Jones, if they can get in, if he sends me a text, I'll come right back on. I mean, I'm in the car at the moment, so so I'll do the best I can, but I'll get back to you if I hear from him.
Okay, Mr. O'Reilly Jones, can you do that? Keep him on call?
Absolutely, Your Honor. Absolutely.
Great. Okay, thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Jones. At this point, I think it's now time for the witness to make his presentation.
Yes, if we can call Mr. Wood to the stand, we would like to do so.
Yes, please, Mr. Wood, I'm going to swear you in first. And I'm waiting for your video appearance.
My video's on.
Your video, oh, here, let's see. I don't, oh, there we go. Oh, there you are. Okay. Mr. Wood, let me swear you in as a witness first, and then I'll turn you over to counsel for questioning. Or however you may wish to make a statement and then have questions. I don't know how you want to proceed, but this is your opportunity to make your presentation. I'm going to swear you in first.
Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that your testimony at this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please proceed however you see fit.
Your Honor, we would like to proceed in question and answer format if it's
okay. Please do so, counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Would you begin, as our other witnesses have, by sharing with the panel a little bit about your own background, training, and experience?
I was raised in Michigan. I went to Oakland University for my undergrad. I got a degree in human resource development with a specialization in, a double minor in sociology and psychology. Graduated with honors. Then I went to University of Michigan and studied social work. I tested out of the first year of the program at University of Michigan. I had to take one exam and I petitioned the rest of the courses. So that meant I took advanced practice courses for my second year. I did advanced classes, and then I did a seminar that I created in critical incident stress debriefing, was what it was called then. Now it's critical incident stress management. Then I moved to California, worked for a child guidance agency with Mr. Jones, as you heard about, in day treatment. Short period, worked in outpatient, then got promoted to intake supervisor, helped open a clinic in Lancaster, Palmdale, did private practice consistently from almost as soon as I got my associate clinical work, social worker status. Then I worked in private practice just to have additional training in private practice. So I was double supervised, and then I did work with ADHD kids to kind of supplement what I was doing in day treatment. And I've been in private practice since.
So in the period of November 2014, you were in private practice. Were you working any other positions at that stage?
No, I was not. I had decreased my practice because I knew that I was in poor health, but I didn't realize the connection between the alcoholism and how severe it was. And looking back, it's disgusting, my behavior. I have no excuse. But, you know, as the board members probably already know, but, you know, when you're in your active addiction, your prefrontal cortex is not working correctly, and mine certainly wasn't, but I'm not making excuses. It was entirely my fault.
Well, let's turn to November 2014. And before we get into your recovery and rehabilitation, let's sort of lay the background procedurally. We want to understand when the incident occurred, when you were arrested and convicted, criminal probation, and all that ties into your board probation. So very briefly, you could walk us through why we're here and how we got to where we are today.
My alcoholism had progressed to being a daily drinker. My mom had flown out that week to celebrate my birthday, and I was on a binge. And I thought that morning that it wasn't as bad. I'd taken some allergy medication, but it didn't matter. I was drinking too much. I made the horrendous error of trying to leave the house. I didn't make it far, 2 miles. I saw 2 motorcycles. I thought I had the light cleared. I didn't. I heard a noise, and I panicked. I have no excuse for any of it. I panicked. I ran. And that's about where my memory of those specific incidents, I can vaguely remember. A lot of it's history because when they arrested me, they took me to the hospital. I don't remember much about I can vaguely remember one incident in the hospital where they were trying to make me sign a power of attorney. And I was transported to a physical rehab place for like another 6 weeks. What I remember is waking up it was a glorified nursing home, and I woke up and I was disgusted with myself. And one of my first thoughts was I've lost my meaning in life, and I've lost my career.
So we will certainly get into more of that in a moment. I want to understand from that period, how did you come to be convicted? I know the conviction was the basis of your board probation.
Oh, after I was in a wheelchair for quite a while. So as soon as I was able, when I was released from the nursing facility, then as soon as I was able, I went to court, and I was ready to plead. And when I went to plead, the judge just ordered me to go to jail immediately. So I was just taken to jail to Twin Towers. And it doesn't really matter. But anyway, I was there for a couple days, and then I was able to get out, and then I went to court. It depended. Because of my physical health status, I would go once a week or every other week to check into court, just depending on what they wanted. Then I was eventually convicted. And then once I was convicted, I said that I would surrender. So I went immediately to Twin Towers. Supposed to be for a year, was right around 4 months that I served. And then I didn't even want anybody. It was embarrassing and disgusting, my behavior. So I didn't even have anybody pick me up from jail. I just took the train home.
Well, I understand with respect to that conviction, there was a criminal probation ordered. Is that right?
Yes, I was actually put on criminal probation when they sentenced me. So I went and voluntarily, I went to sign up for probation immediately that day, found out what I had to start doing, tried to get enrolled in those things before I went to surrender myself to jail. And then as soon as I got out of jail, then I started doing classes. I was in therapy prior to that. I had already started working on my recovery, but when you go to jail, obviously that stops. But whatever the court wanted me to do, I had to wait till I got out. As soon as I got out, I started doing everything they wanted to do.
Did you complete your criminal probation?
I did.
What date was that, if you recall?
It was, I believe it was October 5th of 2020.
So take us to the board's accusation and what happened then. Do you recall when the accusation was filed?
The accusation was filed, I believe it was I remember I knew that I needed to report it. So because I was in the hospital, my mom had written to them. So then we went back and forth. I was reporting it to the board so that they knew beforehand. But then my mom was handling stuff at that time, so I don't know exactly how that went down. But as soon as I got the accusation and I received it, I was dealing with the criminal matters, and then whatever they wanted me to do, I started complying. I hired an attorney to facilitate that process because I wanted to see if there was any way to continue my work as a clinical social worker, because this is what I've always wanted to do. And I knew that I had potentially destroyed that possibility.
We understand from Ms. Heim that you entered into a stipulated settlement agreement and disciplinary order with the board. Is that right?
Yes. I went to a hearing similar to this one in downtown LA. There was also, you guys, I don't need to explain to the board, they know how it goes, but we came up with an agreement and I agreed to it right away. And I said, whatever you need me to do, then I'll do it. And I started doing it, got a supervisor right away, got signed up for relapse prevention right away. I changed therapists because I needed because I went to jail, the addictions counselor, I had lost my insurance too. So with Kaiser, you can't pay cash. So I got my insurance reinstated, but I knew that I needed to have an addictions counselor for the board. So I had an addictions counselor. I had a regular therapist. I had to take a break because of jail. And as soon as I could, I got another addictions specialist. And then I started going to the recovery, relapse prevention program in addition. And I always saw Dr. Eslau though.
We will get to all of that in just a moment. I appreciate your spelling it out. We are just one procedural point away from kind of getting us all on the same page. I understand that you were also licensed in Michigan at some point and that there were things that you may have had to do for Michigan. Could you explain that to the panel?
I have a bachelor's level license, which you get when you do an internship in Michigan. You have to have a bachelor's level license. So I got that in Michigan and I've always maintained it. So they actually wanted me to enter into a stipulated agreement with them prior to California. So that one started first. So I complied with that. So I started drug testing. So at one time I was drug testing for state of Michigan. I was testing on my own for California because I knew that was a requirement. So before the board started it, I was testing privately for the relapse prevention program and for the state of Michigan. So it was random, but sometimes I was tested for two programs at the same day. Right now, the Michigan one is underneath the California because I live in California, the California probation takes precedent. But I'm still compliant with the Michigan probation as well.
Hello?
Excuse me, I think I've lost audio. I cannot hear
Hi.
Mr. Riley Jones.
For some reason, I was muted. Can you hear me again?
I can now, thank you. I saw your lips moving, but I couldn't hear anything. So if you could repeat your
Yes,
question after the witness's answer. I don't have any of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I will keep an eye on it in case I get muted again. Mr. Wood, I wanted to ask just 2 points of clarification. First, it sounds like you were drug and alcohol testing substantially before it became a requirement as a part of your BBS probation. Is that right?
Yeah, I started testing. I knew that they were going to require me to test, so I started testing on my own to show them that I was serious. But then Michigan already implemented their testing procedure, and that had to begin because if I didn't immediately begin testing for Michigan, they would have revoked that license. And then when you're in the relapse prevention program at Kaiser, then they can test you at any time.
Have any of those tests ever been positive?
No.
And the second was, did you comply completely with your Michigan probation or terms and conditions prior to it being subsumed into the California probation?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. I think that covers us procedurally. Let's move on to your sobriety recovery. My first question, of course, is, are you currently sober?
Yes.
And what is your sobriety date for the record?
11/19/14.
Is that the same day that you were involved in the accident?
Yes, that's the last day I ever drank and I ever will.
Can you start by talking to us, start describing your recovery? I'm going to take you through it in portions because I know there are different things that you've done. Could you start by telling us about how you began in AA?
My father's a recovering alcoholic. He has 30 plus years in the program. And so I knew about AA, but better yet, my mom knew about Al-Anon. And I was still in a wheelchair, and she just said, I was just out of the physical rehab, and she said, what are you going to do? So she drove me to AA, which ironically is right down the street from my house. And 2 people came out and they helped unload my wheelchair, and I went in there. They didn't have a meeting that day, so I had to come back the next day. And then for about the next 3 to 3.5 years, I went there every day at noon that they had a meeting. And then the only gap in that was when I went to jail. So
Do you still attend AA?
I do. I go to, because COVID, it's different now, but that same AA meeting that I went to at the Alano Club is now at a church. I go to Spiritual Sunday. We do a book study, so it's not just an AA meeting. We study the 12 and 12, the big book. Right now we're working on Drop the Rock, which is an intensive study of steps 6 and 7. But we alternate which books that we use, and we also do meditation. And then I like that group because most of the people have more time than me. I have 6.5. I have 6 years, and most of the people have 10 plus in that group.
Do you have a sponsor?
I do, Terry Montgomery.
Is that the same Terry Montgomery that submitted a letter for your packet?
That is. And we speak, most of the time it's every week, but sometimes it's more than once a week. It's kind of whenever you need. Sometimes we go to meetings together in LA. It's been difficult with COVID. I try to go to the Rafters in Newhall as well, but they were closed for a while. So it's kind of, but when I always make sure I know where there's a meeting wherever I'm at. If I'm in Michigan, I know where the meetings are near my mom's house. If I go someplace else, I make sure I know where the meetings are before I get there.
Are there any particular steps that have been meaningful to you in your recovery, or more meaningful than others?
I think they're all important. The most important one is step 1, your physical sobriety, admitting that you're powerless. But I would say that doing step 4, doing a searching and fearless moral inventory, looking at what defects you have, because alcohol is a big problem, but I had big problems that were making me use alcohol to try to deal with those other problems. So I had to look at the core of what was going on. Step 10, looking at what I can do to improve myself every day. I meditate every day, so that's step 11. And then step 12 is, if I don't give this recovery away, I can't keep it. So I have to have that that needs to be at the forefront of my mind, whatever I'm doing. If I don't apply it to all areas, then I'm not going to be fully working the 12 steps.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to turn now to something you've mentioned a little bit, but give you an opportunity to explore it. The substance abuse therapy that you've undertaken at Kaiser. Could you tell us a bit about that, when it started, what it's involved?
It started in 2015. Once I got out of the physical rehab, I believe I got to see Dr. Eslao first, and I started working with Linda Barrett, who was a addictions counselor. She then recommended the day treatment program, which was run by Tarzana. I wasn't able to do, she wanted me to consider inpatient, but because I was in a wheelchair, it became complicated. Now that I've worked in rehab, I would know how to find it now, but at the time I didn't know that. So I went to Tarzana for that 2 weeks. I had to wait. I live in the Antelope Valley, so I had to wait for a spot to open up. So then I went to that, and then I continued working with her. Then she left, and then I got another therapist shortly before I had to go to jail. And then, like I said, when I got out, then I had the insurance back. So then I was able to start with Mr. Goreski. And I continued with him. When the board, when he felt like it no longer needed to be a mandate, then I asked him, I actually decided to continue therapy with him, but he's in private practice, so I see him privately. But I do that every other week, so twice a week.
So just a couple of points for clarification. Do Dr. Eslau and Mr. Goreski work together to oversee your substance abuse therapy?
They did all the way through the completion of the relapse prevention and all the way up until Mr. Goreski transferred to another area. He still works with Kaiser, but you can't have a therapist at a Kaiser facility that's too far from your house. So I just pay him to work to get therapy from his private office.
And to clarify that you continue to pay him even though the board has relieved you of the requirement to go see a therapist. Is that right?
Correct, because I think if you find a good fit with a therapist, you should stick with it.
Thank you. You've talked to us a little bit about the day treatment program you were in. Let's shift over to your substance abuse counseling. I understand that you became a substance abuse counselor. Can you tell us when and why and how?
One of the things that I did was I started doing community service. I did that at Grace Resource, which is they're like a food bank and they help homeless people and do different events in the AV. So I was trying to figure out something I could do to give back. So I was doing that. And then I started working at Change Lanes Youth Support, doing community service because I needed to do community service for the criminal part. So I was working with at-risk teens, doing some substance abuse prevention, but also like anger management for adults, a lot of court-ordered stuff. And I was volunteering there. And it just became evident to me that there needed to be more substance abuse professionals in this area. So I had never looked into it. So I went and I got my first, I found out what I had to do and I applied, submitted all my training and got approved to be a substance abuse counselor. Then that accreditation agency, or not agency, but organization lost their accreditation. So then I went and did my LADAC. And so through volunteering and getting back, because the first two volunteer positions, I was still in a wheelchair. And when I got out of jail, in fact, one of the people in AA said, are you gonna give back, or are you just gonna, are you gonna try to get back and do what you do, or are you gonna just sit around? So I went and I applied to work at a rehab facility, a residential rehab. I got hired as a clinician to work at the rehab. And I had to get that approved, of course, by the board. And with my supervisor, I started working there. And then I got promoted to clinical director. And so I supervised different residential houses, and then I supervised the outpatient program and worked with the family program.
So how has that work as a substance abuse counselor impacted your own personal recovery?
Well, point of clarification, one of the things that my sponsor said when I got that job is my personal recovery is separate from my work. So did my work in recovery help strengthen my sobriety? I believe it did, because it gave me a better knowledge of the big book, because that treatment facility is based on the 12 steps. But whenever I was doing those jobs, that didn't mean that I still didn't do my recovery outside of that, so that I still had my own sponsor. Even if I took the clients to a meeting during the day, I went to my own meeting at night, because me taking them to a meeting is not the same as me going to my own meeting. So I definitely enjoyed it, and it helped me. What I liked was to be able to utilize the 12-step principles in my clinical practice. So it was a unique opportunity. The director of that facility has a master's in counseling, but never completed his requirements to be an MFT. So, but to be able to see both sides, and I think in some ways that we need more clinicians in the substance abuse world. I'm not going to bore you. But anyway, dual diagnosis is a real thing. So having co-occurring mental health and substance abuse issues, and that's what I was trained in. And unfortunately, I didn't apply those same principles to myself, which is, there's no excuse.
Let's turn for a moment to your DUI class. Now, I understand this was something that you undertook in connection with your criminal probation. Is that right?
Correct. You have to do a 9-month program to be that. It was part of the criminal probation, but also you have to do that for the DMV. So you had to do 9 months, and that was every week for like 3 hours at night. So I would go to work, and then I would go to that after.
I understand that because you're a substance abuse counselor, your role in that class was maybe a little different from normal. Could you tell us about that?
Well, because I go into every situation trying to be humble and learn, because, you know, you can learn from somebody. In AA, you learn that you can learn from somebody that has 1 day just the same as you can learn from somebody with 20 years if they're really committed to their recovery. But how it applied to that class was when I started answering questions, the instructor pulled me aside and realized that I had a little bit more knowledge, so he would ask questions. But I tried to minimize that because I didn't want to take away from his role. But if somebody had a question, then I would try to answer it like at the break or after class, or give them suggestions on where they could go to meetings, things like that.
So is it fair to say that you kind of took on a leadership role even in that court-ordered class?
Yes, part of the recovery is being of service. So if I'm asked to do something for recovery, then I'm going to do it.
And just to be clear, were you required by your probation to take on that leadership role and to spend time outside of that class helping other people in it?
No, that's a requirement of recovery. You have to give back if you want to keep it.
Now, of course, we've heard about your stipulation and agreement, and when it went into effect, I understand there were a few additional terms that you were required to comply with. First, I want to talk about the psychiatric evaluation. Do you remember undergoing that?
Yes.
Do you by any chance remember the psychologist's conclusion or recommendation?
She said, what she told me was that that I would probably need to see her in a year to see about having like the restriction of supervision lifted. I've since learned that was not something that she had the purview to say. So what she emphasized was to really work on some of the family issues in therapy, which I have, and then also to continue my recovery and to just continue what I was doing, but really, focus on therapy as a tool and to continue what I was doing in terms of recovery at that time.
Without getting into the details, because I know a number of them are very private and are actually going to be sealed according to the protective order that's been issued. Can you tell me, have you complied with each and every one of her recommendations?
Absolutely.
We heard from Mr. Lambert, who was your practice supervisor. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience of practice supervision?
I think it's been a great tool. I think it's helped enhance my clinical skills. He's a very gifted clinician. He has expertise he didn't mention in 0 to 5, which is not something that I was well versed in. So because of the pandemic, for instance, I had a case recently. Anyway, I've learned a lot about working with the younger 0 to 5 population from him, but also he's very knowledgeable about ethical and legal dilemmas. So if I have something that comes up with a court case or with DCFS, it's always better to consult on those issues anyway. But to be able to, I don't know a clinician that wouldn't want to have an extra set of ears to learn more and improve their clinical skills, because the day that I think I know everything as a clinician is the day I should retire.
So if this probation is lifted, of course, he's no longer going to be required to supervise you. If you've benefited so much from that relationship, how will that impact your practice?
Well, he started actually there's a Facebook group for the AV, because it's kind of It's a different part of LA County. How's that? So they're trying to get more interaction between clinicians up here. So maybe doing the Facebook forum, but also the group practice that he's in, there's another psychologist that I know and another licensed MFT that I know that works there. So I can see, I would like us to, even if it's like have a lunchbox, we're also trying to see if they're trying to get the Association for MFTs, and I don't recall it, I apologize, but they're trying to get it so that we can do some more trainings up here in the Antelope Valley and provide more trainings and skills for clinicians in this area. So I will continue to seek out consultation. Absolutely.
So it sounds like even if this probation is lifted, you're going, or you intend at least to regularly collaborate with him.
Yeah, there's also a psychologist that's from Ireland that I really like, that I trained under at Cycles of Change she did some supervision with us when I was working at the rehab, and I'd like to do some more with her too.
So if something legally or ethically challenging came up, would you have any hesitation to reach out to these people?
I wouldn't have hesitation. I would absolutely feel it was the right thing to do.
Let's turn to the relapse prevention program that we've heard a little bit about. Could you tell me, first off, did you complete it?
I did.
Okay. Can you tell me what it involved?
So that was a combination of meeting regularly with the psychiatrist to make sure everything was going well, and then meeting weekly with Mr. Goreski. And then there was also a group component. So there was an education component and a process-oriented group component. I participated in the process-oriented component because that's what my therapist and Dr. Eslov felt was the most appropriate. So we would meet every week, and you could go to different groups. So depending on my schedule, I would go, and so you got a chance to be around other people that were early in recovery. A lot of it was relapse prevention. So by that time, so that's already in 2017. So I already had at least 2 years of recovery. So for me, it was less about the triggers that some other people in early recovery might be worried about, but more about the internal triggers that you need to worry about: stress, anxiety, depression, looking at more complicated family issues, listening to other people, trying to give them suggestions, but also be willing to take suggestions. And a lot of it too was how you manage your recovery in your workplace, because a lot of stress can be workplace oriented. So, and I had started doing a little bit of private practice, so making sure you have a good life balance was important. So we worked a lot with life balance and how you incorporate those things in your work, home, and your social life, all of those areas.
So I know we've covered a lot of activities, but because of the sort of procedurally complex origin of your probation with Michigan and California and criminal probation, I was wondering if you could help sort of parse for the board members, which of the activities we've just discussed did you do over and above any legally required activities? That is to say, any activities that were required by your criminal probation, your Michigan probation, or your Board of Behavioral Sciences probation here in California.
So like going to AA, going to jamborees when they were open before COVID, doing outreach or other AA activities, like going to Tehachapi, they have like a fireside one up there, just doing different activities. Also doing more training through LA Care. They have a lot of, because of right now, a lot of focus is on COVID, but prior to that, a lot was on the opioid crisis. So trying to get more training specifically about that, how to help people in the community. I also work with the doctors in my community because I think that's important that medical and mental health have a connection. So trying to work with them on how better that we can, because opioid, it's a serious crisis. Just as alcohol is just as serious. I'm not making light of that, but looking more at, because a lot of the training I had before was less specific about opioids. So looking at that and then enhancing the dual diagnosis training that I already had. but just trying to learn more. And like I said, also, whenever there's an opportunity to serve, Mr. Jones mentioned when my first sponsor, I had a sponsor before Mr. Montgomery, so working with him, and then there was another person that was in a similar auto accident, and I just recently was reached out to by him because we have our sobriety dates there's 3 of us that got sober at the Lano Club around the same time, so we stay connected. And so he reached out to me recently. So sometimes it's about, helping somebody else in the program that needs something.
Let me run through a couple of things just to confirm, because I wanted to be really clear, what you've done, because you're required to, and certainly what you've done in addition. So do any of your probations or other legal orders require you to have a sponsor in AA?
No.
But you have consistently had one?
Yes, if you want to maintain your recovery, you need to have a sponsor, at least in the recovery program that I'm working, which is 12 step.
Since the board, terminated the requirement for you to have therapy, have you continued in it?
I never stopped.
I understand that you have recently, during COVID, maybe started an additional exercise and diet routines that you felt have been beneficial to your recovery. Can you tell us about those?
I started to notice that my clients and also people that I knew were really impacted by the stress. And I don't like to exercise, but I thought, if I'm going to be home more, then I need to do something. So it was actually a year ago, I started swimming in my pool. I meditate every day, which is part of my recovery and also just something I think is a benefit. But also, so I started exercising and then I changed my diet. So I do have cirrhosis, so I have to see the doctor every 6 months. So the last time I went, I had lost weight and my numbers were better than they've ever been since the accident.
So does any probation or other court order that you're subject to require you to meditate, exercise, or improve your diet in any way?
No.
But you found these to be helpful to your recovery? I
think, there's 3 parts of recovery from my perspective, is having a strong program. And for me, that includes meditation. The second part is going to meetings. And the third part is having a sponsor. If you talk to people that have relapsed, because I think that's important, if you hear somebody relapse, to ask them what happened. And usually you'll find that they forgot or stopped doing one of those 3 things.
So I want to turn to the ultimate question here, and that is to say, if you've been so successful with this probation and your recovery, why is it that you're here a year before it would naturally end, asking that it be lifted? Well, the first thing I would say is, I think the board members are probably aware that the 5-year model is a solid model. I think two other boards that use it, one's a board, the dental board, Dr. Tracy that I've worked with in the family program. The 5-year model is a good one, so I'm not disputing that. The only thing I'm saying is that you never say how many years you'll have in recovery. I have 6 years. I will have 7 in November. My recovery is 5 years old. It's actually 6 years old. So I'm not disputing the fact that 5 years is a good model. Where it impacts me now is, for instance, the financial implications of the drug testing. It's expensive. Paying for supervision. If you pay for drug testing, supervision, and therapy, which I have no problem paying, but it's a significant amount of money, that also is impacted by, for me to work in private practice, to get a good time for testing, that means I need to get up at 3:30 in the morning to log in to get an early time. Because if I don't log in at 3:30, then I'm going to get a later time, which means I'm probably going to have to cancel somebody, which creates issues for the clients. The other thing is, some of the insurance companies will not allow me to be paneled with them until I'm off probation. So some of my clients that do have insurance are paying me out of pocket. And that's, if it impacts me, that's fine, because I deserve everything that's happened to me. But when it impacts my clients, if I have to cancel them, or if they're paying out of pocket, and some of the people in Antelope Valley, that's a lot of money for them. I can give them a reduced rate, which I do. But it's still money that they could be using their benefits for, but I can't do that because I can't get paneled with those companies until I'm off probation. If you didn't have to wake up at 3 a.m. every morning to make sure that the test times that you're given don't interfere with your clients, do you think you might be more available to see additional clients?
Right, because if you get up that early, then you go to bed early because you have to get enough rest to be on top of things. So I go to bed early right now because I have to be able to get up early to do that. So, and again, I don't mind doing it. I'm not saying that. It's just I could use that time for something else.
And the last thing that we've mentioned in a couple of places, and actually a couple of witnesses mentioned it too, but I don't know if it's 100% clear for those who don't live there. Could you tell us a bit about the Antelope Valley and the delivery of mental health care there? I mean, is it hard to obtain mental health care in Antelope Valley, or relatively easy compared to, say, someplace like downtown Los Angeles?
I think it's hard for people to get mental health services in general, but I don't know any clinician in the Antelope Valley that has current openings. Right now, it's usually the only openings that people have are if it's direct referral from somebody you know, or if it's one of the doctors that I work with, and obviously I'm going to make time for that person. But I have people driving to me from Santa Clarita all the time. I have one client that's coming all the way from, it's almost Altadena, I believe. So, again, I don't have any problem doing supervision or any of the other things. I'll continue to do those things, but having it mandated so that it's taking up blocks of my schedule makes it so that I'm not able to provide services to more people, but also that it would just be easier I believe it would be easier for some of my clients to access services if they could use their insurance. So,
thank you.
because I know some people don't come every week because they can't afford it.
Is there
But the Antelope Valley, I'll give you an example. When I was the interim director at the Child and Family Guidance Center, when we were trying to hire clinicians or psychiatrists, we'd schedule interviews and they'd get about to act in and we'd get a phone call and they'd say, I'm not coming up there. And so it's very difficult. Or we would have psychiatrists and we would pay for them to stay in hotels so that they would come up for a couple of days. So it's, if anybody knows anybody that's willing to provide services, we could definitely use the help up here for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there anything else you want to tell the panel before we turn it over to them for their questions?
I just want to make it crystal clear that I have, when preparing for today, I had the opportunity to look through everything. And when I look back, I'm disgusted at my behavior, both on November 19th and the months leading up to that. In the big book, Bill Wilson talks about having ominous warnings, and I had those and I ignored them and I have no excuse. The only thing I can say is that I've learned and will continue to learn from my mistakes, and I want to be able to continue to provide the best services for my clients and help other people with addiction problems find a way out. Because as Don mentioned, Mr. Jones, mentioned, not the rates for recovery are far too low. So we need to continue to learn and try to help as many people as we can. Because as one of the guys in my meeting says, it's a killer disease and it's no joke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wood. I believe that concludes our direct examination and our presentation, Your Honor. We'd like to move into evidence exhibits A through D if there's no objection.
Is there any objection to moving in exhibits A through D?
This is Doug Heim. No, there is no objection.
Okay, and again, I'm sorry, somebody was about to say something? I thought I was interrupting someone, and maybe I wasn't. Okay, let me start off. Exhibits A through D, and I realize that apparently the board has not seen all of these. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And Ms. Heim, you've seen exhibits A through D, and you have no objection to their admission, is that correct?
That is correct, yes. No objection.
Okay, and I would again, just to clarify that exhibits C and D are simply an update of letters that the board has seen that are part of the exhibit 1. And in each case, there is pretty much almost word for word, except there might be a sentence that says this is an update, but substantively, it's exactly what was presented to the board. And Counsel O'Reilly Jones, I think you would stipulate that being the case, right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay, and just to clarify, because I think it's important that we understand this, what you're offering as Exhibit A is a letter from another person who has a letter in the file, Omar Eslaomd, E-S-L-A-O-M-D. And again, this appears to be a duplicate of what's in the file. Would you stipulate to that, Mr. O'Reilly Jones?
If it is the same letter that is contained in the file, then yes. We prepared these before we had access to the complete file. So if to the extent that it's duplicative, I will stipulate that.
It just basically indicates that there's a stability that's continued, and this letter requests that the mandatory requirement to be seen be dropped, as there's no need for this frequent monitoring. I believe this has to do with the request for the discontinuance of the psychotherapy requirement, and we've had extensive testimony about that. And Exhibit B is simply a letter from the therapist, again referencing the discontinuance of that requirement. So I just wanted to make sure that it's stipulated that there's nothing in here that's not duplicative of what's already in the file. Is that, can all parties stipulate to that?
Can I make one comment?
Yes.
The reason the letter is there from the doctor is because at one point, and I'm not sure if it was my confusion or whatever, but at one point they wanted me to see the psychiatrist and the therapist on certain intervals. And so the psychiatrist most people don't see a psychiatrist every month. So he just wanted that clarified because he didn't feel like it was necessary for me to see him every month.
Understood. Okay, there's a pending request for exhibits A through D to be offered into evidence. And I am going to admit it because I think it is substantially, even though it's being presented late and the board members have not had the opportunity to see it, it is substantially similar to documents that I have seen that are part of the record in this matter. So with that stipulation, I will admit them, exhibits A through D, into evidence. Is that clear? Are all parties in agreement with that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, exhibits A through D will come in. Now, on this particular matter, our next thing, Ms. Heim, do you have any questions of the petitioner?
Just one, thank you. Mr. Wood, I wanted to thank you for your extremely thorough testimony today. And just one question for me would be that I would like to know, to confirm whether or not you take full responsibility for the behavior that led to your discipline.
I absolutely take full responsibility. There's absolutely no excuse for my behavior on November 19th of 14, or like I said, in the days or months prior to that. And to make amends, I think there's amends. Anybody that I can in person, I have done. And any person that I've neglected that comes forward, I will do that, do so to them in person. And then what we call a living amends in recovery is that I work every day to try to, there's no way for me to make up for what I did, but what I can do is try to at least do something better and good for those people around me and in the community going forward. But I absolutely take full responsibility for my actions. I have, like I said several times, no excuse.
Okay, nothing further, Ms. Heim?
Nothing further, thank you.
Do the board members have questions?
Your Honor, Max Disposti here, Board Chair. Just two notes. We received the documentations that were missing around 1 or 5 p.m. today, so the board is up to date. Hopefully, we will have time to read it before we reconvene this afternoon. I am a little bit concerned about the timing. I apologize for sharing that, but it's been an hour and 40 minutes now. Yeah, I will invite my colleagues to place any questions they might have, but we really also need to move forward because we have another petitioner and a closed session today. We have been coming together for about 5.5 hours already. So I'm just an appeal to my board members. If you have any questions, please raise your hands. And so we can do faster this way at this point. Is anyone that would like to ask questions to our petitioner? And thank you, Mr. Wood, for your patience on this too.
I have one, just a very quick question.
Thank you, Christina Wang.
Hi, Mr. Wood. Thank you so much for the very, very detailed testimony that you have. So if the board grants you the early termination of your petition, what will you do with what is the plan, for you to replace the supervised practice since you are in private practice? So what is your plan?
I think that's a good question. The one thing is I'm going to continue therapy with a licensed clinician where, because it is my therapy that I pay for, I can utilize it. I can ask questions of him if I have questions that relate to my practice. I'm going to continue, like I said before, to collaborate with Mr. Lambert, also Mrs. LaFrance, who works in the same office, also Mr. Shavira that works in the same office. He's a licensed psychologist. She's a licensed MFT. I also have, I maintain contact with Cycles of Change where I previously worked. So I am able to utilize resources from there. And I also have other clinicians that I've worked with through the years that I can receive continued consultation with. But I also, to date, I've also completed another about 36 hours in continuing education. I also like to go to the LA Care seminars, which I'm hoping open back up in person, but I'm also going to continue to enhance my clinical practice in that way. But any opportunity for learning to continue to hone my skills as a therapist, I will continue to do, as well as I maintain my other license. I also do continuing education for the LADAC, which is 54 hours, which is even more continuing education. But I'll actively maintain relationships with colleagues. And anytime I have a doubt, or even if I have the idea that I might have a doubt, then I'll reach out for consultation in those matters.
So it seems that the consultation group, that you have, that you're thinking about has not really formed yet. Is that correct?
No, it hasn't, but I haven't stopped seeing Mr. Lambert, but I have to approach him, but I plan to ask him if we can at least do consultation to have, because I already go to that suite on a regular basis, I plan to continue to consult. If he's not available, I'll find somebody else, but I will not stop to answer your question.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anything further?
And any more questions from our board members? Observations?
I'm not seeing any raised hands, Max.
So I don't have a question, but I just want to thank you for coming in, Mr. Woods. I mean, not only was that very thorough, it is very clear that you have really taken your rehabilitation seriously and you really are engaging in your own personal growth. So I just want to say thank you. It didn't feel like an hour and 40 minutes. It was a delight to hear your story and to hear what you've done. So thank you for coming in today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jonathan. Your Honor, there are no more questions, so I'll leave it to you for the closing part.
Okay, thank you very much. And I don't know if, I'm not sure the closing statements are necessary in this case.
I concur.
Okay, and I think we've thoroughly explored the subject matter, and I don't think we need closing statements from either from the Attorney General or from Mr. Riley Jones. And I don't hear any objection to that, particularly because of the time frame. The only thing I need to do before we go off the record, I want to put the court reporter on notice if she could provide me with the estimated number of pages. And by the way, Mr. O'Reilly Jones, the court reporter is Julie Granger. Her CSR number is 9201, and she's going to give me an estimated number of pages if anyone wants to order a transcript. Ms. Granger, what do you come up with?
Yes, Your Honor. We have 78 pages.
Okay, great. And let's see, it's approximately 2:25 p.m. is the closing, would you say?
Yes, Your Honor. I have 227.
2:27. Okay, just before we go off, we're still on right now. Just before we go off, I just want to conclude the matter by indicating for the record that concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The case is submitted and the record is closed, and we're off the record in this matter, and we'll proceed to the next petition. Thank you, and the parties should remain on. This record is closed, but we're now deliberating as to how we should proceed further, and I take it we're ready to immediately proceed with the next one, or does anybody?
No, Your Honor. No,
Yes,
no, we need a break.
We need a short break. About how many minutes you think?
Actually, 10 minutes. I will reconvene anyone at 2:40 here. 12 minutes.
2:40. Thank
Yes.
you. Meet everybody then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are all the members present? We're ready for a roll call.
Wonderful. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. Board of Behavioral Science, July 7. We are reopening the public sessions for our petition hearing. My name is Max Disposti, board chair, pronounced him is. And we have our judge that is presiding the proceeding, Mr. Bennett, Wilbur Bennett. And Your Honor, we're going to call a roll right now to make sure we are the board members are all present. Steve,
Okay.
you can help us with that.
Okay, Max Disposti,
Yes, present.
Deborah Brown,
Here?
Ross Ehrlich,
Here.
Susan Friedman,
Here.
Diana Herwick,
Here.
Christopher Jones.
Here.
Jonathan Maddox,
Here.
Kelly Ronasinghe.
Here.
Thank you. John Sobek,
Present.
Wendy Strack,
Here.
Christina Wong.
Here.
All members are present.
Okay, thank you. We are here today to review the petition for early termination of probation of Sheila Francis Lynch. Let the record reflect that the board members have identified themselves for the record and that a quorum of the board is present. This matter is being heard before the Board of Behavioral Sciences. My name is Wilbert Bennett. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I have been assigned to hear this matter. Let the record reflect that this matter bears Office of Administrative Hearings case number 2021-060292 and Board of Behavioral Sciences case number 200-2018-000565. May I take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Patricia Weber-Heim, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California pursuant to Government Code Section 11522.
Okay, and the petitioner is present, Sheila Francis Lynch.
I am,
Ms.
Your Honor.
Lynch, good afternoon to you.
Afternoon.
Okay, you're not represented by counsel, is that correct, Ms. Lynch?
Just myself.
Okay, because of that, I'm going to give you just a few prefatory comments. In this proceeding, the board is concerned with hearing about any rehabilitation since your license was disciplined. The procedure is that the Deputy Attorney General will first present your petition package and provide a brief case summary or background in this matter. After that, you will have an opportunity to make your presentation. Remember, the board has had the benefit of reading the petition package, and you do not have to repeat anything in that package. You will then be subject to questioning by both the board members and the Deputy Attorney General. After this hearing, the board will go into closed session to deliberate. You will not receive a decision today. It will be mailed in the near future. Do you have any questions?
I do not, Your Honor.
Okay, we will proceed, and we are proceeding obviously this way because of the ongoing public health crisis. That is, this way meaning by video conference or by telephone. Because of the way that we're proceeding, we all need to be careful not to talk over each other so that the court reporter can make an accurate record of this proceeding. At the end of the hearing, the court reporter will notify the parties about the estimated number of pages of this hearing should any of the parties wish a transcript. And so with that, with the brief prefatory comments, we will proceed at this point. And I'm going to ask the Deputy Attorney General to present the petition package as well as to provide a background or case summary in this matter. Please proceed, Ms. Heim.
Thank you. And I will provide a summary, but as a preliminary matter, I would like to note that a request for a protective order has been filed and provided to all the parties and all those present regarding pages 44 through 55 of Exhibit 1, which is the petition for early termination packet. And these documents consist of information that should be private from public viewing because it contains either psychiatric or medical records of petitioner.
Yes, I'm aware of that, and having reviewed the materials in question, the petition order will be granted, duly noted for the record. Ms. Lynch, you're aware of this particular aspect of the case, are you not?
I am, and I appreciate that very much.
Oh, yes, this will be, as I say, the protective order will be granted, and the parties are deemed to be aware of it, and none of the parties have objected, and it will be duly noted for the record, and a copy will be provided at the appropriate time. So, but the bottom line is that the protective order has been granted, and we can proceed on that basis. Thank you, Councilor Heim, for bringing that to our attention. Please proceed.
Thank you. Regarding petitioner's discipline history, she was issued a clinical social worker license on or about May 13th, 2017. On July 7th, 2017, Ms. Lynch was convicted of a misdemeanor DUI. An accusation was filed on January 12th, 2018, and the board adopted a stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which immediately revoked, stayed, and placed petitioner on probation for 4 years with optional and standard terms and conditions effective November 1st, 2018. There is no tolling history in this matter, and regarding modification, Ms. Lynch informally petitioned for modification on November 1st, 2019. Her fluid testing at that time was reduced to a minimum of 24 times per year. Regarding her probation compliance, she is not represented by an attorney, and she is requesting early termination of her probation. Her psychological evaluation was completed on December 24th, 2019, and she was deemed safe to practice with no recommendations. She is fully compliant with her psychotherapy quarterly reports. She is fully compliant with the dependency support program. Regarding remedial education, she completed this requirement on June 18th, 2018. She is fully compliant with the biological fluid testing, and she is fully compliant with the standard terms and conditions, including submitting quarterly reports and the reimbursement of costs. And now I will introduce the petition packet and the other exhibits which have been provided to the board members and to petitioner. Pre-marked as Exhibit 1 is the original petition packet, and it includes supplemental documentation. Preliminarily, though, her petition was dated November 16th, 2020, and the attachments include her typewritten responses to questions 11, 12, and 13, followed by her LCSW certificate for license number LCSW 76775, which was issued May 13th, 2017. There's a letter of reference dated June 1st, 2020 from Professor Sean Purcell. She included her course transcripts from the College of Marin and a certificate of completion for a 6-week online course in Psychology of Addiction and Recovery. This is followed by a letter of reference dated September 28, 2020 from Roxanne Davis May, including her resume. This is followed by a letter of reference dated September 19th, 2020, and includes an initial letter dated May 28, 2017 from William Rick Scott, PhD, MFC number 41714. There's a letter of reference dated October 13th, 2020, and includes an initial letter dated October 11th, 2017 from Lynn Irvin, LCSW number 28683. This is followed by a letter of reference dated September 5th, 2020 from Jillian Eddy, Petitioner's AA sponsor. This is followed by a letter of reference dated September 21st, 2020 from Kristen Palmer. Next is a letter of reference dated October 30th, 2020 from Mary Alexandra Barrett. There is an initial letter of explanation from Petitioner dated April 23rd, 2017, which was sent with her April 23rd, 2017 application for licensure. The remainder of the petition for early termination of probation has been filed under seal. And at this time, I would submit Exhibit 1 for all purposes.
Your Honor, can you hear us?
I'm sorry, I'm back on the record now. I had a brief interruption. I'm sorry. Hey, I'm back, please.
Exhibit 1 at this time has been requested to be admitted for all purposes.
Is there any objection? Okay, Exhibit 1 is admitted, again, with the understanding that those portions identified for the record as covered by the protective order are sealed. Please proceed, counsel.
Thank you. Pre-marked as Exhibit 2 is the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which was effective November 1st, 2018, which ordered that petitioner's licensed clinical social worker registration number LCSW 76775 was revoked, stayed, and placed on 4 years probation with terms and conditions. Accusation number 200-2018-00565, dated January 12, 2018, was attached. At this time, I would move to submit Exhibit 2 into evidence for all purposes.
Any objection, Ms. Lynch?
No
Any
objection, Your
objection?
Honor. No objection, Your
Okay.
Honor.
Okay, Exhibit 2 is in evidence. Thank you, counsel.
Thank you. Pre-marked
Chairman,
as
this
Exhibit
proceeding
3.
Is the judge's counter off?
I'm sorry?
Is the judge's camera off? I can't see him.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe, am I back on it? Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was off. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yes, you're now going to present Exhibit 3. Thank you very much for that note. Okay.
Thank you. Pre-marked as Exhibit 3 includes the following documents. The notice of hearing to petitioner, which was dated June 7th, 2020, possibly 2021. I'll need to double check. And the license history certification for petitioner for licensed clinical social worker license number LCSW 76775. This registration is in full force and effect and will expire on July 31st, 2022, unless renewed. At this time, I would move to submit Exhibit 3 into evidence.
Any objection, Ms. Lynch?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, Exhibit 3 is in evidence.
Thank you. And finally, pre-marked as Exhibit 4 is the order of dismissal, which was pursuant to Penal Code Section 1203.4, dismissing all convictions in the matter entitled People v. Sheila Lynch, Marin County Superior Court, case number CR 200796. This is dated January 27th, 2021. At this time, I would move to submit Exhibit 4 into evidence for all purposes.
Is there any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, Exhibit 4 is in evidence.
Thank you. And at this time, I will rest subject to cross-examination of the petitioner following her testimony.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Heim. Ms. Lynch, this is your opportunity to make your presentation in this matter. Before you proceed, I'm going to give you just a brief prefatory comment. Again, this is your opportunity to present your case. You may testify on your own behalf. You are reminded that the board has had the benefit of your petition package, so there is no need to repeat anything in that package. Do you have any additional documents you'd like to present?
I do not, Your Honor, but I do have an opening statement that I would like to say.
I'm going to give you that opportunity right now, and I take it you don't have any witnesses you would like to call to testify on your behalf, correct?
I do not,
Okay.
Your Honor.
Okay, I'm going to give you the opportunity to make your presentation, but before I do that, let me swear you in as a witness, because you might make something in your opening statement that's testimony that should be considered. So I'm going to swear you in as a witness right now. Then you can make your opening statement and go into your presentation however you see fit, okay? Are you with me?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Do you, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that your testimony in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Lynch, please proceed however you see fit.
Thank you so much. I want to address the board and the fact that I know it's been a long day so far. I do have an opening statement of 7 minutes, so I have timed it, but I believe it's pretty thorough and it should answer many of your questions. And I'm going to keep everything as concise as possible, especially my answers after this, as we have all been here for a long time. We don't have another petitioner, do we?
No.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you for your patience on this too. It's been a long time coming for me to be able to humanize this experience for myself. It's been a really tough one. So I would like to begin by summarizing the nature of the act causing the disciplinary action against my license. I'm currently on probation due to my unlawful, reckless, and dangerous behavior when I drove intoxicated the night March 3rd, 2017. This action was inconsistent and incompatible with the law and ethical code of conduct of this profession. I was wrong to allow my celebratory evening with my girlfriends to escalate to the point of intoxication, in which my judgment was so severely impaired that I risked the lives of innocent drivers. Sorry, my heart's beating.
Take your time. Take your time.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's still the shame. I'm still like trying to process that. Okay. I have often reflected on how different the outcome could have been that night if I killed someone while driving intoxicated. And that sobering reality and remorse, I began to examine my behavior and choices with alcohol. Before the DUI, I would have said I was a moderate drinker. My husband and I rarely drank at home. I did not enjoy drinking alone, and I did not believe in drinking during the work week, including Sundays. I did, however, often consume 3 to 5 drinks socially on Friday nights. This pattern of behavior did not seem aberrant to me until I took my court-mandated DUI class. I learned that for women, 3 or 4 drinks in the evening is binge drinking. Within that knowledge, I realized I was abusing and participating in an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. Although the DUI course and my new self-awareness felt like enough to change my binge drinking behavior, the most profound transformation in my evolution with alcohol is due to the disciplinary actions of this board. The wisdom and the construction of the probationary terms, in which I received an education about the toxicity of substance use, participated in a supportive dependency program, and then processed underlying reasons for my substance use in psychotherapy, has been essential in transforming my life. Although my previous drinking behavior was not one that had progressed into alcoholism, I have no illusions that there was a possibility it could have due to the progressive nature of this disease, and I've decided to embrace a lifelong commitment to sobriety and Alcoholics Anonymous. The actions that I've taken to rehabilitate myself far exceed the definition of rehabilitation itself, which states the action of restoring something that has been damaged to its former condition. To be clear, I have no interest in living a life reflective of its former condition. I have organically and with painful intention deconstructed my former concept of myself and reconstructed a life that reflects the immense growth of this journey. My respect for AA and the desire for self-awareness led me to seek a sponsor and to work through the 12 steps. I wanted a deeper understanding of spirituality and how the 12-step program transformed lives. I learned I was spiritually bereft and began to develop my faith in a higher power. I learned that acceptance was the key to letting go of control, that control was only an illusion built on my fear of feeling unsafe. I became a sponsor to newcomers, gave back with continual commitments in 2 of my home groups, and recently was nominated as secretary for the last 6 months in an hour-and-a-half women's meeting on Saturdays. I sincerely appreciate and love the benefits of AA, and the program will always be part of my commitment to lifelong sobriety. AA brought me humility, grace, and a community of friends I respect. In psychotherapy, I progressed from my deep shame of the DUI, self-compassion, forgiveness, and self-acceptance. Obviously, I'm still working on that. I have worked through the psychodynamic process of understanding the trauma of my abusive childhood and how it manifested into a sense of unworthiness. I have recognized that I can let go of control and still be safe, that perfectionism is the worst form of self-abuse, and that there's peace in letting go. I recognize that I formerly used alcohol to escape from social anxiety and stress and began to build an arsenal of coping mechanisms to mitigate my underlying fear. This arsenal includes a morning ritual of meditation, prayer, gratitude, and yoga, and daily exercise. I utilize de-stressing strategies like diaphragmatic breathing, muscle relaxation techniques, EFT tapping, mindfulness, writing, and art. To stay spiritually fit, I work my program and am furthering my knowledge with audible books from spiritual leaders such as Eckhart Tolle, Michael Singer, Viktor Frankl, and Tara Brach. For the remedial education required for the probation, I completed the course, Drugs and Psychology at College of Marin of California. This course expanded my understanding of alcoholism as a progressive disease that alters the brain and changes the reward pathways. I now understand the influence of substances on brain neurotransmitters and how continued use can reinforce addiction into a progressive state. In pursuit of more in-depth knowledge for myself and my clients, I took an additional course through Stanford with the Medical Director of Addiction of Medicine, Dr. Anna Lambeck. The course, Psychology of Addiction and Recovery, offered other knowledge on the neuroplasticity of the brain, the phenomenon of epigenetics, and interventions for recovery. I'm also currently taking a course offered by Dr. Gabor Mate, focused on healing trauma and addiction, that correlates addiction to generational and personal trauma. To ensure the board that I'll continue to safely practice as a psychotherapist and independent practice, I continue with all the rehabilitative factors I just described as a daily integrative process. But I will continue to enjoy my commitment to lifelong sobriety along with my strong support group of friends in the AA Fellowship and a husband who joined me in sobriety as an act of solidarity at the beginning of this transformational journey. I will continue with psychotherapy as I believe that self-awareness and change are lifelong endeavors. I also have joined a psychotherapy consultation group of 5 fellow clinicians that focus on law and ethics and case study in private practice. I'm part of an AA Women's Book Club that meets once a month and focuses on nonfiction books related to spiritual and personal growth. I'm thrilled to finally say that after 15 years of wanting to get out, I am no longer bartending and have not for over a year and a half. In addition, I am in the process of training as a volunteer facilitator for the Compassion Prison Project. This is a nonprofit organization that embodies restorative justice and rehabilitation with incarcerated men and women by creating group processing work involving adverse childhood experiences and trauma. The empathy that I have for those struggling to overcome life-defining mistakes fuels my desire to volunteer for this organization. I'm so sorry, I always cry. In closing, I would like to share my favorite quote from the great psychologist and Holocaust survivor, Viktor Frankl, one which encapsulates my rehabilitative transformation. What is to give light must first endure burning. In the past 3 years, I have struggled through intense shame into the evolution of knowledge, self-awareness, spirituality, and finally into the light of profound change. I was allowed the opportunity to deconstruct the woman I thought I was and then reconstruct myself into a woman I always hoped to be. It's very true. It is truly a cathartic experience to go through this probation, one for which I'm deeply grateful and would like to extend my gratitude to the board and my higher power for changing the course of my life. I'm sorry, you guys, I get so emotional. I apologize.
Ms. Lynch, that is quite all right. I just want to make sure you finished your presentation.
I did, Your Honor. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, and there was one matter that you stated toward the end that is very important for you. And you said it's the quote from Viktor Frankl. And I want to make sure I got it correctly. What is to give light must first endure burning.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you, how do you relate that to your personal situation?
Yes, Your Honor. To me, this whole process of this, not just the probation, but the DUI, was literally burning my identity of who I thought I was and completely reconstructing it into the woman that sits before you. I didn't know that I need spiritual awareness. I didn't know that I needed to kind of expand and understand what substances were to me and what I needed to make profound changes in my life. This process, I had to deconstruct, and with humility and ego deconstruction in order to embrace this process, because it's hard. I'm sure all petitioners can say this, but being part of the criminal process and getting handcuffs on your hands is a very dehumanizing prospect, and reconstructing myself into the person I am going through that was part of that. Did not think of that, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you. And I knew that I had a meaning for you, and I just wanted to clarify what that was.
Thank you,
okay,
sir.
at this point, I'm going to ask if the Deputy Attorney General has questions.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Lynch, I didn't see a specific sobriety date. Do you happen to have a sobriety date that you
I
would
do.
consider your sobriety date?
I do. October 21st, 2018. That is 2 years, 8 months, and 16 days.
Thank you. And I saw there was a letter from Jillian Eddy who said she was your AA sponsor. Does that still continue to be your sponsor?
She is.
Thank you. How often do you speak with her?
Once a week.
Thank you. And then I just have one more question, and I would like to thank you for your honest testimony today. You mentioned bartending and that you stopped about, what, a year and a half ago bartending?
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Were you drinking when you were bartending, or were you sober?
I know this is hard to believe unless you're in the service industry in California, but most of the places I bartended encourage drinking while you work. I'm horrified about that now. And in fact, it was almost a liability if you didn't, because the owners wanted you to drink with clientele so that they didn't feel uncomfortable. I stopped drinking for 9 months right after I got the DUI. And when I went through the DUI court mandated course and looked at my drinking, I realized that if I was ever going to do it again, it would have to be very consciously and with all the information I learned. So then for the next year before the probation, I want to make this really clear because I think you should ask about it, and I'm sure you will. I did drink consciously after that 9 months about 6 or 7 times, very consciously, until I started the probation, and then I got involved in AA. And then once I got on that transition, I just realized like life is just better without it. There's just no need for it, honestly. And especially transitioning friends and transitioning my life into a life of sobriety and emotional sobriety in all different ways, spiritual growth, that there's just no need for it. So did that answer your question? Probably too much. I overshare all the time. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. It's okay. Thank you. At this time, I have no further questions. I will turn it over to the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do the board members have questions?
Your Honor, Board Chair Max Disposti here. At this point, Steve, if you would like to call the name, so we'll see if we have any questions.
Okay, Christina Wong. Christina.
Yes, I'm here. So thank you so much, Ms. Lynch, that providing a very candid testimony. I actually don't have any questions, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wong.
Steve.
Okay, sorry, Wendy Strack.
Hi, thanks for being here. I just have one clarification question because I got a little mixed up on the sobriety dates with your last comments.
Sure.
So it's the October 2018 date. Is that after? Did that include the time that you drank consciously as a bartender, or was that prior to October 2018?
That's post. So October 21st, 2018 is my sobriety date.
Okay. Thank you. That's my only question.
Thank you.
Okay. John Silva.
Hello.
Hello, John.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And we all know on the board how challenging and nerve-wracking this experience can be. So keep breathing. We're all there.
Thank you so much.
I just do have a few questions, and it has to do with this concept that you brought up of perfectionism, old version of self, created, carved, and new version of yourself, which has a long list of things that you are doing to take care of yourself. I am curious, do you feel in any way that there is a perfect way for you to now use these practices and be the perfect sober person? Is perfectionism still like edging into this creation of your sober self?
I would love to tell you no, but that's not honest. Yes, I will struggle with perfectionism for, it will probably be a lifelong endeavor. But the difference now is that I let go of the need for control around it. So I try to be my best. I try to do my best, but not be the best. And so for me, I'm always going to try my best. I mean, I think Bill Gates said that at one point when he talked about striving in academia and stuff like that. I mean, I got honors in Berkeley undergrad and grad because I felt like that was what my worth and value was as a first generational graduate student. And putting myself through college, no one helped me do that. I felt like that I needed to prove, right, that I was worth something coming from poverty. But I don't feel the same way about that now. I know I have worth. And I'll tell you, a lot of it is because of the psychotherapy and the AA and the steps and the self-examination. But my therapist said to me when I started work with her, she said, Sheila, if there's one thing we can do, it's that you can feel worthy at the end of this process. You know, and that's from childhood trauma. You know, that's from being told you're not good enough, literally, and being hit and all that stuff. And so I recognize that now. I know I have worth whether or not the board decides to grant me this petition. I know I'm a great clinician, whether or not it's recognized here, because you're just doing what you need to, you know, to keep the public safe. And I respect that. But perfectionism will always be a struggle. Brene Brown just mentioned that perfectionism is actually an ism and it's an addiction. And I agree with that. So I see that and I do work on that on a daily basis. It's funny you say it because I'm literally reading this as I was sitting through the gifts of imperfection. And I'm working on that with a client as well. Like I bring all this stuff to my clients. It's changed my whole psychotherapy practice. And I'm so grateful for it. And I think my clients are grateful for it. They just don't know that.
And how do you feel the pressure of perfectionism if it got too strong again? What do you think your caretaking systems might be? And is substance still on track for being one of those? If that perfectionism got too intense and it started to crack a little bit, what would you do? And how would you maintain your well-being?
Go to a meeting, read the book, call a sponsor. This morning, I'm reading Gifts of Imperfection as I'm listening to you guys. I'm reading the big book. I did my meditation in the morning. I have such a great arsenal that I do daily. I do not miss it. As far as like, I don't waver from that. For me, that keeps me centered. And the perfectionism, I want to be clear about that. When I say it's a lifelong endeavor, it doesn't mean that there hasn't been progression with it with me. And it doesn't mean I hold on tight to it like I used to without the knowledge that I was seeking perfection and why I was seeking perfection. It's more that I have to be honest in that it's something that for me, I will hold on to as I work through really developing like the strongest sense of self-worth that I could. I don't know when that day will happen. Probably the day I die, to be honest.
And one final question then. In your path towards sobriety, do you believe you've had a relapse?
No. I hope that's not the wrong answer, but no, I don't feel that I've had a relapse. I feel that my true sobriety started with AA for me.
There was no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
It was just an information gathering thing for me. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Kelly Ranasinghe.
Anything?
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge Lynch coming here to the board and thank you for her very heartfelt testimony. I have no questions. I would just note for the record that from 304 to 307, my camera was off. However, I was connected by audio.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. Could you speak up a little bit? I'm having trouble hearing you. This is the court reporter.
Sure. I have no questions, but from 304 to 307, my camera was off, but I was connected through audio.
Jonathan Maddox?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Christopher Jones?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you for your testimony. It was very heartfelt.
Thank you, Christopher.
Okay. Diana Herwick?
I do have just one question, and I'm sorry if you already said this and I'm asking you to repeat, but can you just share a little bit about why you're asking to get off of probation early?
I think probably for the same reasons that many of the petitioners have mentioned, the financial strain is excessive. And one of the reasons why I continued to bartend until a year and a half ago is because I didn't want my husband to have to pay a penny of it because it was my mistake. So I worked for that extra income to be able to pay for the petition, for this probation. At this point, it's been over $58,000, and it's tough. And but besides that, there are many other reasons too. Most of them selfish, though. I mean, there is one that it's selfish but not selfish, but I've done 3 humanitarian trips to Africa, and I would love the opportunity to go back. That was my dream, that when I got my LCSW, I would work with Doctors Without Borders like a month out of the year. And I really, really want to do that. So I would love that opportunity to do that. Also, like petitioners have said, it's really hard. Like, I can't get liability insurance. I've been, there's jobs that I applied for, and every time that disciplinary action question comes up, it limits my ability. I wanted to volunteer in the hospitals when COVID first started happening because I got COVID like in March when it first happened. So I was exposed to it. So I thought I would be someone that could help them, and I wasn't able to because of the probationary stuff. So there's reasons like that.
Okay,
Mostly
thank you.
selfish, though. You're welcome.
Thank you. No other questions for me.
Okay. Susan Friedman? Susan?
Forgot.
We can hear you now.
Something is, can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Sorry.
No problem.
Something is weird. I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing your story, because I know how important it is for you, but it is very important for us to hear that. And I did want to tell you that Viktor Frankl is definitely one of my most favorite people. And the quote that I always remember that he said is that those of us who survived know that the best among us did not survive, which has nothing to do with what you're talking about. But I really do love his work and all the other people that you mentioned. So I know you've been doing a lot of very, very hard work. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Freeman.
Ross Ehrlich?
Good afternoon. I just want to echo, appreciation for you coming and giving this testimony. I know it's difficult. I don't have any questions. One of the previous board members actually asked it, so no other questions.
Thank you so much, Ross.
Okay. Deborah Brown?
I'd just like to thank you for coming in. I know you had to wait till the very end, and I really appreciate that. I hope you wish you the best on your recovery. And I know that it just goes on and on. It's not something I don't think anybody ever masters. And it's just a lifelong journey. So thank you for coming in. And I believe all my colleagues have asked the pertinent questions that I might have asked. So thank you again.
Thank you kindly. Thank you, Deborah.
And then Max was supposed to.
Thank you, Ms. Lynch, for being here. I echo everything that's been said so far. And just thank you also for your volunteer services around the world. So thank you.
Thank you, Max.
And that's it.
Anything further from board?
No, Your Honor, I believe. Sorry, Your
Any
Honor.
more board member questions? No more?
I believe we're done.
Okay, Deputy Attorney General questions?
No, thank you. I have nothing further.
Okay, one clarifying question, Ms. Lynch.
Sure.
Your sobriety date was October 21st, 2018.
Correct.
Anything special about that date? I mean, that made you determine that it was your sobriety date? Anything happened that date specifically, or does that just happen to be the date?
I have to be honest, it was the date that I needed to do for this probation. I'm just being honest with that. I mean, I don't think I drank before that for, no, that October 21st was the last time. Yeah, it was a dinner I had with my husband, and that was the last time that we ever drank, and that dinner was for saying goodbye.
Okay.
My life.
It looks like the disciplinary decision became effective November 1st of 2018.
Correct.
So you just wanted to make sure you were on board to be abstinent.
Correct.
And I think I heard you say that you would have become sober sooner, but you had to keep working and you had to drink as part of your bartending job?
No, Your Honor, that wasn't the reason why. I think what it was is that, and I don't know if the board can understand this if any of you are in AA, but one of the reasons when you go into NA, they call it the gift of desperation, where you drink to the point where you know you're an alcoholic and you can't stop drinking. I never went through that. You know, and so when you show up because of it, for me, the probation, it was something in which I didn't attend AA because I couldn't stop drinking and knew I had this problem. I attended because of the probation, and through AA, I recognized, and through this whole transformation, that alcohol just isn't important enough for me to give up the life and everything I've learned. And I'm so embedded in AA and the support system. It's one of the things that's difficult, I think, when you attend a 12-step program, and this is probably burying me, to be honest, but I have to be honest about this. It's one of the things that probably, for me, was really difficult, because I wasn't going there because I was just like, my elevator didn't go all the way to the bottom. This DUI was my bottom. But for most people in AA, when you hear the stories, like, it's not a bottom, like they're, you know, it's a high bottom for them, you know, and every time I hear the stories and the speakers of, you know, the drinking, I just couldn't stop, and I ruined my family and my relationships, and they just were stashing bottles and all these things. Like, these are the stories I hear, and that wasn't my behavior. It doesn't mean that I didn't abuse alcohol, and it doesn't mean that it wouldn't have progressed into alcoholism. That is enough for me to say I have no interest in it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just wanting to clarify the sobriety date situation, and it was October 21st, 2018.
Yes.
And before that, when did you stop your job as a bartender?
I stopped it 1.5 years ago with COVID. A little pre-COVID, I stopped it, and it's God doing for me what I could not do for myself, because it's always been a crutch for me. It got me through college and paying for my own school. And I realized I didn't need it to be able to survive financially. And I've been wanting out for so long. I'm so happy. But I bartended for that 9 months and didn't drink. And then I drank for that year before, like I said, only like 6 times, like consciously. So I wasn't bartending. I wasn't drinking when I was bartending. You know, I'm able to not do that, but I just don't want to be in that atmosphere anymore. I don't want to be in a bar. I don't want to see people drinking all the time. It's just not something I want to be around.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any further questions from anyone, board member or Deputy Attorney General? Nothing further? Okay. At this point, do either of the parties wish to make a closing statement of some kind? Or have we covered everything?
I have nothing
Any-
further. This is Dag Heim.
Nothing further from the Deputy Attorney General? And nothing further, anything further from you, Ms. Lynch?
Don't ask me that question. I go on forever. So no, I'm good, Your Honor. I'm done. I'm going to let everyone go home.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask, before we go off the record, I'm going to ask the court reporter if she could give us an estimate of the pages.
Yes, Your Honor, we're at 35.
35 pages, and it's
Yes.
approximately, what, 3:30, would you say? Or
I have 3:30, Your Honor.
okay, before we go off the record, I'm just going to say that that concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The case is submitted and the record is closed. And once we go off the record, then the board will be deliberating in closed session. Thank you all very much, and we will be deliberating in closed session shortly. So I will, I guess, we stay tuned in, so to speak, but the hearing is over and the record is closed. Thank you.
Thank you,
very much.
Your Thank you, Your Honor. For the public, we're going now to move in closed sessions. Our moderator, we will gently escort you out of this room, and we are going